For Sunday, February 18th, you've found the Georgia gang. Topping our agenda today, could there be a tax cut coming from the state of Georgia? How about transit in North Fulton? There are some obstacles. And at the port of Savannah, the money is not there yet. Some of the stories up for grabs on the Georgia Gang.
From the Fox 5 studios, the Georgia Gang starts now.
And we're glad you could be with us in what we think might be a false spring. Warm, nice, the chill is gone, but there's always March.
Yes.
And we know that living in Atlanta.
Known for snow.
And also, when we do this broadcast in the face of a major national news story, it always feels somewhat insufficient. I mean, what do we say about the shootings in Florida? We don't on this broadcast. But nonetheless, we acknowledge that it happened, and I think it hangs over people. It's a bad deal. But our job is local, and so we'll stay there, and we'll start at the state capitol, where I'm beginning to think that since Governor Deal is a lame duck, the General Assembly might just cut the state's income tax. Phil, what do you think of the chances?
Well, I hope they do. We have talked about this, and we, of course, have a windfall because of the Trump tax reform. And so we're looking at perhaps, I think, I don't know, a
$4.7 billion.
$4.7 billion, thank you. Now, this cut that's being proposed is $1.7 billion. I would like to see it a little bit more.
And the reason is that 4.7 over 5 years.
Yes, that's correct.
And you don't want to give it all back.
That's correct. It does have to be phased.
Right.
So I hope, last year they tried to do this and it didn't work, even though the Republicans control both chambers. So I hope they get their act together this year.
Yeah, I think that this is a good move because what the governor said is that he is predicting this windfall. We don't know exactly what this money is going to be. I mean, it's still a lot.
Yeah, that's
of uncertainty.
The unknown, right?
But the other side to this is that some people down at the Capitol are saying, great, let's look at the income tax. Let's look at ways that we can cut money for taxpayers having to pay. But at a time where we know we need more QBE funding, and at a time when we're trying to expand transit, and more importantly, we have rural hospitals closing, some people have encouraged the governor to look at those 3 sectors to maybe use some of this money as well.
But my sense, Alexis, is that there is momentum building for a tax cut. I don't think Governor Deal wants a tax cut. He is, after all, the most prudent governor I can remember since Joe Frank Harris, frankly.
Well, and also it's a one-time deal
right.
that would happen, and so it wouldn't be something that you could count on going forward to help with.
His bill's too complicated. Tax cut's easy. His bill's too complicated. Basically, his bill says that if you take the standard federal deduction and don't itemize, you can then itemize for your state deduction.
Right.
That's too complicated.
Well, it's too cautious an approach, too. I think we could get a little more dramatic and help the people of Georgia.
In the meantime, state revenues are soaring because people tried to prepay in December.
Right.
Right.
It's a fascinating thing. I think the key to this tax cut, this is what I'm picking up, will Casey Cagle go along with it?
Well, he should. He's running for governor. And I think that...
yeah, but he might be governor and then have to deal with a shortfall.
That's exactly right. But, this is now and that's then. So he needs to get through his primary and talk to the people about a tax cut.
Then the other thing that happened this week at the state capitol that was of most importance, we've talked about it a lot before, but the House got its version of the transit bill for Metro Atlanta. Same deal, 13 counties under some sort of an umbrella organization. It would, I guess, follow Brandon Beach's idea that there would be MARTA under some, there'd be a 13-county governance board.
It would be the ATL, the Atlanta Transit Link.
Getting at. Yeah.
And yes, MARTA would be under it. I think it's an interesting start of a conversation. You're right, 13 counties would be participating. The kicker is how to fund all of this. And would some of the counties want to raise taxes to do it?
Well, also with Fulton and DeKalb having been in there for 40 years, how are they going to fare in terms of the finance as well as the governance?
Right.
Spoken just like the folks up in North Fulton County. Well done. Commissioner Liz Hausman said that. Wait a minute, what do we do with the investment we already have and hadn't serviced? Mike Bodker in Johns Creek, right?
And then also, let's not forget, I mean, the MARTA Act was put in place in 1965, and if we look at what just happened in Clayton, when Clayton County opted into MARTA, and they created an escrow account for them. The way that the MARTA Act currently reads, and it's been revised many, many times, but it allows counties and areas to basically come into MARTA, and you just have to put it to a referendum vote. And so one of the things that's going to come up is, how do we make sure that we're looking at a MARTA Act that's been put in place that gives counties like Clayton a full opportunity to opt in, and it creates an escrow account that allows that county to make sure that they're receiving the funding.
That's a good point. Also, we have to talk about the governance. Now, there would be a board made up of representatives of these 13 counties. The MARTA board would stay put, but I think there's some details that have to be worked out as we go forward here.
Well, there are, and also I think worth pointing out is when the bill was introduced, Charlotte Nash of Gwinnett County was there, and a couple of Cobb commissioners were there. So, and also Charlotte Nash in her State of the County address in Gwinnett said economic development and transit were the two major issues. That's a whole different tune than we've heard from Gwinnett since the MARTA Act was passed in 1965.
You're right. And you know, it was originally by former Governor Barnes, it was originally Greta to be the lead dog for transportation planning. That never worked out. This is what you're referring to.
As I love to say on this broadcast, Governor Barnes created buses.
Okay.
Greta, he ran buses.
But my point is that never worked. And so this ATL, this Atlanta Transit Link that we're talking about now, is supposed to be now the new lead dog with financing tools and all of that, which frankly, we need more coordination as we deal with a growing population.
But the chairwoman in Gwinnett County coming out and basically saying that she really wants transit is very happy. I'm very happy for not only Gwinnett but all of the region, because they've found transit religion. But I think to the point that I'm making is that how do you do this at a time where you already have a MARTA Act and you have a good, efficient MARTA in place? And what are you going to do about some of the other counties that are outside this scope, and how that they continue to want to expand transit?
And they have to vote or not vote on it.
Right. And remember that MARTA stands for Metropolitan Atlanta Transit Authority, and that could be the governance board for the whole thing.
So a lot of people think this is redundant. A lot of people think that we are actually having a conversation that doesn't need to really be had, because we already have a transit regional system in place that all you got to do is adhere to just join it. So that's another thing that's going to come up in this argument.
Well, but I don't want to be parochial here, but it seems to me that opposition is building in North Fulton. And everybody just assumed that North Fulton wants rail up 400, right? No.
Well, it's not just rail. They're talking about mass transit, public transit, buses.
Johns Creek doesn't even want bus rapid transit.
And
no, well, they kind of want to preserve, and I can understand that. They want to preserve basically their suburban marketing program because it's a quality of life issue. So I can understand both sides of that. That's why voters say yes or no.
We got a minute or two left.
They're already in Fulton.
Let's highlight a few bills that are in the General Assembly that are moving. I like the fact that Renee Underman got some movement on her bill to allow advanced practitioner nurses to expand their duties in rural areas. I think that's very sensible. Nurses are highly skilled. I think that's a good thing. She also got that brunch bill through, which we've talked about. You can have your mimosa at 11 a.m.
It still has to go through the House.
Yeah, but it's been through the Senate now. It's passed that. Any other legislation that you're keeping an eye on?
Well, I like the one, I think we all do. I like fees that where you pay a tax or a fee that are designated for something like tire cleanup or something else, actually going to that tire cleanup.
Revolutionary, isn't it?
Yes, but instead the legislators shift it to pet projects, and so I hope that one passes.
Another thing I do is I got to give a shout out to Majority Leader Kauser in the Senate. Now, right now, we talked about this a little bit in this meeting.
He's your homie, isn't he?
Yeah, he's my homeboy from Athens. And a good Republican. And we're actually good friends. But now the legislature have proactively said that each legislator now is going to have to take sexual harassment training to make sure that they're conducting themselves in the right manner at the state capitol. So this is something that kind of didn't get a lot of play, but Kauser and Butch Miller and other Republicans led the way to proactively make sure that these people are receiving that training.
All right. Anything you're following?
No.
Criminal justice reform.
Oh, yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Well, go ahead. You want to talk about that?
I do want to
get wants to get
cash
bonds, following the city's lead that they did a couple of weeks ago, that judges would be able to take into account whether someone has ability to pay the bail and to be released from jail.
For a poor defendant. But you know what? I read the same story and I thought that. However, I called some judges, and judges already have this flexibility. There was some misreporting in the AJC, frankly, on Friday morning. Judges can do what they call a signature bond. If there's a poor defendant, doesn't have the cash, it's a case-by-case basis. They can say, okay, then we don't have a problem with that. Or if it's a hardened case, they can rule the other way. So they have the flexibility now. The only thing the governor's bill that he likes would make it mandatory.
Yeah, that they would have to take it into
Yeah,
account.
I like the way the present system is that give the judges
We got to
flexibility.
get out. I was just thinking about that sexual harassment training for the legislators every 2 years. You know, that could be a real simple class. Don't touch her. Don't say that to her, right? Live by the bonds of civilized society.
That is sounds pretty simple,
Could be
unfortunately.
simple, right?
Well, that would be a 1-minute course.
Exactly. Just common sense. All right. When we come back, could there be another new city on the South Side? Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
This panel has been divided for years on the question of new cities. A couple of us like them, a couple of us don't, but there's a new wrinkle. And by the way, I just want to say that the original new cities like Sandy Springs, Dunwoody, Brookhaven have not raised taxes, period. Right?
Absolutely.
Have not.
Sandy Springs is a model for the country.
All the
Well, they don't
naysayers
have
were
to
wrong.
because they have so much money.
No, they set
That's
their
where the rich
millage rate.
people
They
live.
never changed it.
Okay.
They have the sustainability.
But there's a new wrinkle now in Henry County where the people of Eagles Landing, which was originally just a golf club, right? They want their own city. They want to separate, however, not from the county, but from the city of Stockbridge. That's the first time we've seen this. It passed the state senate this week. Yeah, they're going to de-annex. And to do it, to make it work, they're going to add some people from unincorporated Henry County. And it's interesting the way the numbers work. The racial balance seems to be the same. But, Phil, it doesn't look like the economics of it are balanced.
Well, I don't fully agree with that. Senator Brian Strickland has pointed out, rightly so, there's been several years of discussion and sustainability studies, and I think they're ready to go, and I think they present a very good case.
But Eagles Landing is taking some of the key commercial property away from the city of Stockbridge.
That's right. But, you know, let's go back to the Sandy Springs example. I think that there's nothing wrong with the locality if they can sustain themselves with the tax base. Why not have local control over their local affairs?
But why do you take from somebody else's local control?
Because it's dysfunctional, and that's what happened with Fulton County and Sandy Springs.
That's
Everyone will
city.
tell you, I live in
It's
Sandy
city.
Springs, and let me tell you something.
Not
Let me
from a
tell you
county.
something. It was a terrible place before Sandy Springs became a city. The police and fire response times were terrible.
Code
Crime was up.
enforcement.
So I don't have a problem with local control over local affairs.
So here's the problem. Let's make sure we, for our viewers, present the entire argument here. And so what happened at the Capitol on Thursday is that there's still a motion to reconsider. So this Tuesday is going to be a very key day because the Senate bill is going to be revisited, and then it's also a House bill that's going to be discussed in the House. So that hasn't really gotten any traction. Second point I want to make is what the bill currently says is that let this small demographic of people in unincorporated Henry County vote on whether or not to de-annex, and it's going to affect over 60% of the people in the city of Stockbridge.
And they don't get to vote.
They don't get to vote. So that's the first problem. The other problem is this has never, ever been done before.
Right.
So when you had Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, all these cities that we've mentioned.
Well, so what?
But my point is, hold on, yeah, but here we go. And this is why I think you're going to like this. If we start setting this precedent where areas can start de-annexing from cities, then what happens when we've seen conversations around San Michelle saying, oh, Buckhead will never leave Atlanta. But if you let this happen in the city of Stockbridge, you're going to see areas in key cities all across the state that will follow this model. And then the last thing I want to say is this. This is going to hurt this city to upwards of $5 million if this was to happen. They only have an operational budget of $9 million. And so to try to say that this is a dysfunctional city that is just not run well, it's just not accurate.
Well, we should go by a case-by-case basis.
And then the other thing that happened...
But Darren's making a good point. This is the first time it's been
first ever.
city from city.
Yeah, and then the other thing that happened, your good friend, Senator Strickland, who you shouted out, well, I'll shout out Senator Emanuel Jones, who represent the people of Stockbridge.
Listen, I can't give give Emmanuel Jones the
No,
time of day.
but-
Look, that guy had oversight over the CAB for years and never did a thing except study committees.
Well,
he didn't know how government works, Emmanuel Jones.
But let's not
He
take
didn't understand how dysfunctional the CAB was.
Now, Dick, let's stay
Right.
objective, okay? But my point is,
No.
the point I'm trying to make is there was no collaboration. Senator Jones was never briefed. None other than members of the Senate delegation from Henry was briefed.
This has been going on for several years
but
now.
it was,
Come on.
but it was
This is nothing
a
new.
2-hour-plus debate down at the Capitol, and people like State Senator Nikema Williams and others, was ringing their button trying to be heard. And so this is nothing but a Republican move
Oh, that's ridiculous.
to try to get involved in de-annexing a city that is very efficient.
There, and it should be a case-by-case basis.
You gotta get
Perhaps
out.
you're right about some things, but I think that the case is being made very effectively that if people are living in what they feel is a dysfunctional area, they have the right to try and improve their quality of life.
All right, we got to get out.
So they should move to Chicago.
That's an argument, however, that could be applied to Buckhead. You got to be careful.
I
with this.
understand. Oh, I get it. I get it.
So you want Buckhead to leave Atlanta for?
I'd take a look at it.
Really? Okay.
Ooh, think of the impact of that. All right, we didn't get to Clayton County. We're going to readjust here, cram some stuff in. I'll get the brain trust together while you watch the revenue source of this broadcast. Stay with us.
Have a question or comment for the Georgia Gang? Visit their website at fox5atlanta.com.
And don't forget us on Facebook. Lots of lively activity this week. And we're on YouTube with our own channel, The Georgia Gang. Sometimes you can watch us on YouTube before you can watch us on television, which is kind of cool. I want to just a quick note about some of these local issues. I was struck by the fact that 500 Clayton County school children came to the Capitol to protest the doing away with the jet fuel tax for airlines, including Delta. Not the state capitol. They went to Delta headquarters.
They came to the state capitol as well.
And protested. Is that a proper use of a school kid's day? Why are you pulling them out
Well,
of
the
class?
answer is no.
Well, it shows them how politics works and how government works, right?
But that's a good thing, except to have them engaged in a cause. I think that's your point.
Yes.
Yeah, but Superintendent Beasley, basically the Clayton County superintendent, was at the Capitol last week to talk about the economic impact it's going to have on the school system.
$18 million,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, so we're not talking about small change here, Phil. We're talking about $18
I
million.
understand. Could
right?
we have school children
Yeah,
go to the
but-
Capitol to
so-
protest
so-
illegal immigration that's
well,
costing this state
yeah,
billions?
Hey, don't.
So where do you go?
don't-
So where do you go with the
don't
school
lose-
children?
Don't lose your cool.
I'm
Let's
talking
keep it
about
cool.
school children and the causes that you engage
it
them
is a
in.
public facility, and you have people from your party and the religious right that come down there all the time. Are you going to tell the people who are down there for medical marijuana that they can't? What about the children who come down? Are you going to tell them
I
they
think
can't
they
come
ought to be
down there,
watching
Phil?
government, and they ought to try
They
to be
can't-
given a overall view rather than some sort of narrow view from either the right or
What
the
it
left.
did, Dick, it really sort of symbolized what was at stake. Legislators were
Yeah,
walking
I get
out.
that, but it
and
makes
they
them look like pawns.
No, it doesn't make them look like pawns. You, for so many decades, have been able to bring children down to the state capitol to protest on many, many issues. When you guys were having that big debate, cluster debate in DeKalb County about whether the cluster was going to be created, there were kids that came down from DeKalb County to talk to legislators about that. And so I think that it was totally appropriate. They were peaceful. They were not bothering anybody, and it was a good
And they
good
One
can
other-
see
lesson
how
for
their
them.
government works.
Yeah.
One other local item. I hear, I've not tracked this down entirely, that the city of Atlanta has dissolved the General Employees Pension Fund Board. We've talked about that issue and the city, Kasim Reed's efforts to reconstitute the boards and take control of them. I hear that the Pension Fund Board has been dissolved. Everybody's been let go. I think that means a lawsuit or continuation of a lawsuit. I don't know. We'll wait further developments.
No, I don't think that. I think that, as we talked about once before, at the end of Mayor Reed's term, there was a legislative action taken by the council and under Mayor Reed's leadership to consolidate the three boards.
Right.
And so it's not that they've been eliminated; it's just a consolidation
And to
process.
bring more mayoral appointments.
Well, yeah, but Darren, the first
slant
step
it.
is you get rid of all the people on the current board
Right.
Yeah.
But
before
I
you
think
reconstitute.
Right.
Right, but I don't want the viewers to think that the city of Atlanta does
Has
not have a
no
pension board.
pension.
Like,
Well, believe me, I think this is a big story that's brewing that we're going to have to follow. I want to turn to Washington because our two U.S. senators have been integral in key legislation. Phil, your favorite topic, immigration, illegal immigration, let's say that, right? Just focus on illegal immigration. Congress couldn't come to, the U.S. Senate couldn't come to terms with it. They couldn't agree with President Trump. They couldn't agree with conservatives. They couldn't agree with liberals. It's just floundering.
It is floundering this past week.
And David Perdue was angry.
Well, Republican, just to set the stage, the Republican leader, Senator McConnell, said we would have a free and open debate. Anybody could do any amendments they want. I thought that was good. It was fair. Everybody got a shot at it, as you're pointing out, liberals and conservatives and everybody in between. The Democrats wanted this, so the Republicans said fine. But nobody could garner the votes. President Trump had set out his
tweet.
His agenda, and the Democrats did their tweets and their agenda. This was supposed to be a bipartisan thing that we thought was going to be agreed on. However, the Democrats, as usual, the far left, wanted far too much. They wanted amnesty for millions.
Bipartisan measure
Well, no, it all fell apart.
No,
There's general agreement on DACA.
Well, what also happened, to the point I was making, there's a general agreement on DACA, but here's where it went wrong, is when President Trump, who's been floundering since he was inaugurated.
No, that's ridiculous.
Okay, he
On
is.
the issue, yes,
on this issue, okay? He's been floundering on this issue, Phil, since he was inaugurated. You're frustrated with him. I am too.
He's been pretty consistent, except that he's
when
negotiating.
But when he asked for upwards to $25 million to build this wall, therein lies the problem. So they tried to attach this big financial tag to the bill. And I got to give Johnny Isakson some credit, because what you have between David Perdue and Johnny Isakson is the tale of two Republicans. David Perdue is willing to crawl over broken glass for this president. He'll do anything
well, that's
to try
a total
to...
exaggeration.
no, he is.
Senator
And
Isakson ended up supporting 2 bills
Yes.
of the 3.
Yes, he did.
And then Senator Isakson is saying, hey, we got to do something about DACA. We got to do something about immigration reform. And so this is all of the failure of the leadership on the president's part.
We have to get out. I want to real quickly
It's a
point out-
congressional thing. It's not a presidential thing. Congress was supposed to get together. He set the parameters, and so did Chuck Schumer, the Democrat leader. I would say that it's a failure of not getting together on basics. You're right. They did agree on DACA. They couldn't agree. That $25 billion wasn't all for a wall. It was for border security, which the Democrats don't really like.
I think it was for that wall,
That's
Phil.
not true.
You know, it just occurred to me that we're in the Olympic season. The wall might be a great excuse for Latin Americans as we take up pole vaulting.
Oh, stop.
By the way, if you want to talk about
Stop
D.C., let's talk about the Savannah port for a minute.
Yes.
David Perdue
quickly.
did ask a very good question to Budget Director Mulvaney, and he said, is there money for the Savannah ports and Brunswick ports in the infrastructure bill? The answer is yes. So we could be getting more
If there's an
money.
infrastructure bill.
So we might need to get...
That's right.
He's
But
still
President
floundering
Trump's
on that,
budget-
too.
Well, it's supposed to
We
be
gotta get out.
something that
We gotta
the
get out.
Democrats flounder too. How about both are floundering?
Well, how about they might need to call former Mayor Kasim Reed to go up there with Governor Deal to see if they can talk some sense to those folks.
Good luck.
Good
Good luck
Once.
with them.
All right, we got to get out. When we come back, we will go to winners and losers. Stay with us.
Time now for the week's winners and losers.
And to clarify on the Port of Savannah, we should note President Trump's budget proposal only gives half of what Georgia needs to complete the deepening of the Port of
But
Savannah.
that's why I say there could
But
be extra money in the
infrastructure bill if it passes. Well, we're here with you, Phil. Go ahead. Winners, losers.
Well, I got 2 winners this past week. I heard a great speech by former U.S. Senator Saxby Chambliss. He's become a cybersecurity expert, and the audience was we were just scared stiff when we heard some of this, talking about how the North Koreans are some of the biggest players in trying to destroy infrastructure of U.S. companies, and we are constantly, I think he said the Pentagon gets 1.5 million hits every day by more and more sophisticated hackers. It's scary. He's a Paul Revere trying to warn us about this about cybersecurity and what we need to do to make it better. And my other winner is Augusta, my old stomping grounds, because that's become the cybersecurity capital of this country, with Fort Gordon, with the Army Command, the Cyber Command, and then building a training center in downtown Augusta. Senator Chambliss will be down there to help open it up, and Governor Deal and the legislature have been very supportive.
And Mayor Davis deserves a little credit there, too.
Hardy Davis, the mayor, deserves a lot of credit. You're
Darren,
right.
what do you have?
I have a big winner this week is Fire Chief Joel Baker, who's retiring after 32 years on the force, on the Atlanta Fire and Rescue Department. Great man, known him for a very long time, and just want to wish him very well. He will be missed. And I know he didn't want to touch on this a little bit, but I think that my loser is any elected official that is not willing to have a sensible conversation about gun control in this country. And anybody that thinks that we got to continue the same and not do something about access to guns when people can walk into schools and murder children, whether they're mentally ill, whether they have hatred, we've got to make sure that this is something that
I'm with
put
you.
on
I
top
just
of the
don't know
agenda.
what.
Yeah,
Alexis,
but we got to have the conversation, Dick.
Oh,
Okay, I'm going to change and lighten up a little bit and go with the Atlanta Jewish Film Festival, concluded this week with a tremendous series of films and tremendous outpouring of audiences is a great thing. They will continue to do programming throughout the year, though, but congratulations to a great festival. And then I want to mention Lerone Bennett Jr. He died this week. He was 89. He was the longtime editor of Ebony magazine.
Oh, yeah.
And the only other place he ever worked was the Atlanta Daily World when he graduated from Morehouse College. And one of his most cherished books is Before the Mayflower.
All right. I will quickly squeeze in Officer Chase Maddox of the Locust Grove Police Department, who was shot by a maniac, and then his wife gave birth to a second child 2 days after. His funeral was Saturday. It's awful. But spring training's begun. We're going to feel warmer, and I'll see you next week on the Georgia Gang.